I'm Eric Miskell with EMSNOW. I'm here at the INDIC facility in India, and it's my pleasure. Actually, we've spoken before. So I'm with Pradeep Nelamangala. He's Senior Vice President Business Development here with INDIC. And I really want to talk to you and get your insights about kind of OEMs and how they're experiencing India, right? And how they're moving here and then ultimately maybe how INDIC is helping to facilitate that. So let's start maybe big picture. What is your experience of how overseas clients, OEMs, pursue engagements with Indian manufacturers?
First of all, Eric, it's a pleasure to have you on site. Welcome. And I know you've been on the road. You've been traveling across the country for almost 2 weeks now. But it's really good to be having you on site and having this discussion. So I just would like to give you two different flavors in terms of how OEMs overseas are looking at working with Indian counterparts on the design front. And then I'll probably touch upon how do they look at it or how do they approach it from a manufacturing perspective, right? If you look at the way some of the OEMs, either based out of US or Europe, are working on the design partnership, they have a very methodical step-by-step approach in the way they engage with the Indian counterparts, whether it's from an ODM perspective or whether they work with their own in-house teams based out of India. The way they transition is they usually start with something which is on a very lower scale in terms of a lot of tactical work, doing engineering change management, providing support to the customer in case there are any field excursions. Which are a lot more tactical, less impact to the organization. And once that is taken care of, that is stabilized, they usually go to allowing the teams in India managing the entire product life cycle from a sustenance standpoint. Now, sustenance is the phase where the product is shipping in volumes. It's gone through the entire NPI phase. It's got stabilized in terms of manufacturing yield. But then there's a lot of work that's involved in terms of sustaining the platform. Now, once that is stabilized, then they typically go to what we used to call in the design environment as respins or value engineering work, wherein they get a little more confidence in the capability of the team to touch the design and make some minor changes, thereby realizing value for the organization. And they reach the pinnacle when they actually outsource the entire design work for a product or a platform, right? So that's from a design perspective. Now, come to the manufacturing part. Typically, the way it works is we have conversations with these OEM clients to understand what is it that they're looking for. So they basically go back and do their ROI analysis, whether it makes sense to move away from their incumbent supplier within the region to India. A lot of these conversations are based on obviously cost and some of the quality aspects and whether we are able to be at par in terms of deliverables. Once they are through with their ROI analysis, they usually start with prototyping builds, wherein they build a few units, it goes to their engineering teams, it goes through a lot of evaluation. And once they're comfortable that the product built is at par in terms of quality and features compared to their incumbent supplier, they usually go for an evaluation build, which is probably in terms of quantity a little higher compared to a prototype build, but goes through the same level of scrutiny from a quality standpoint. Everything going well, commercials sorted out, that's when they start mass manufacturing engagement. And of course, they work on their own methodology of how do they manage the transition between their existing suppliers and new suppliers, right? So in a nutshell, whether it's on the design side or the manufacturing side, there's a very clearly defined methodical approach that I have seen that OEMs take. Right? Whether they are engaging on the design front or on the manufacturing front.
And that's interesting because I've spoken to quite a few EMS over the last 2 weeks, and that seems to be a big push within the EMS in India is to engage at the design level early on so that you're partnering with them, helping develop the supply chain, and usually that helps ensure that you're also doing the production later on.
Absolutely.
So that seems to be what everybody's
I think that's a progress that has happened over the last, I would say, 5 to 8 years. If you just rewind about 8 to 10 years back, most of the CMs or contract manufacturers would just go as manufacturers, wherein it was all built to print. So the customer owns the design, customer owns the bill of material. You just buy parts, mount it, test it, ship it. I think over a period of time, what each one of the EMSs have realized is the value proposition with just the manufacturing part is shrinking. And that's where people are moving either to the left in terms of doing things early in the design life cycle, or to the right, wherein some of the EMS companies are offering aftermarket services.
Right.
So you now see the EMS actually expanding end to end, almost similar to an OEM from a product
Right.
lifecycle management standpoint.
And you mentioned ODM earlier too, so the original design manufacturing, but within there between EMS, OEM, ODM, there's also joint design manufacturing where the EMS design team will partner with the OEM to jointly design that, and the IP for which will stay with the OEM.
Yeah.
Right? So which phase do you, not phase, but how do you see that evolving within India?
Well, I think a lot of companies are going the ODM route. I see that gaining a lot more traction. But I can speak to what INDIC is trying to do. We are going more of a JDM route, wherein we do, as you rightly said, joint development. And the IP ownership still remains with the client. But there are a lot of companies, as I said, that are doing ODM, and they're actually doing white labeling, right? Wherein they design the product for a certain customer's requirement, but they can actually sell the same product horizontally across different verticals. But from a INDIC standpoint, we are exploring JDM with a couple of customers. They have their incumbent designs. They want to go to the next gen design. We're saying, okay, let's sit across the table and design the product together. And in a few cases, we are also in conversation for an ODM route.
So in the situation where you have a client who's come to you for the design part, or the manufacturing part, how successful are you kind of then moving back? Maybe they start, test you, make sure you can manufacture it, good quality, meet your goals there. Are you able to then say, hey, to engage on the design side?
I think what we are, the approach that we are taking is, we take the product, we get into mass manufacturing, we service the customer, meet their requirement first, because they come to INDIC from a manufacturing standpoint. And as part of that engagement, we give them value-added services like DFX. We give them options of how to lower the cost with alternate sourcing. With that, we are able to create a value proposition for them wherein we say that, look, let's not talk about a completely new design, but let's talk about how do we rehash the existing design to bring value for you. Once we are able to gain their confidence on that front, it becomes a very easy conversation to have, saying that, look, we can also design your new product if you have a concept ready. So that's the way we are approaching it.
Prove your value, help maybe some cost engineering, and off you go. So tell me, what factors, in your opinion, drive kind of long-term engagement with these export clients, as you would?
Well, it's very difficult to demarcate between what an overseas client looks at to what some of the tier one companies in India look at today, right? Again, you rewind back, probably the Indian clients were more focused on cost and quality and delivery. We used to call it as QDC metrics. But I think over a period of time, even they have evolved. I wouldn't say they are probably at par wherein they have a holistic view of all the factors, but they've just progressed from just being QDC focused to a lot more things. But in general, I will probably say about 5 to 6 factors govern this relationship. Any customer would first want to know, is their IP protected when they come to a manufacturing site? And especially if you're a customer who's sitting thousands of miles away, there's 12 hours difference between the time you work and the time your manufacturing partner works. They are really scared about whether there's a possibility of their IP getting stolen. And again, this goes back to the experience that some of the companies had when they offshored to China. They went through a lot of turmoil at that point of time. So I think IP protection becomes a very key criteria, probably the number one criteria that they look at, right? And I can speak to what INDIC is doing. Though we are going as a JDM, ODM partner, we've kept the design companies separate. It's outside of the INDIC umbrella, though it's under the same management. These two companies operate very separately. They have their own tools, process, and systems that they work with. And the access to information is very restricted between the two companies. It's only on need-to-know basis. So that way we make sure that IP is thoroughly guarded. Customers really don't have to worry about whether their IP is at stake, right? The second thing that definitely that any customer would look at is quality. No client would want to engage with a manufacturing partner or a design house wherein their quality is compromised.
Yes.
I think at best they want it at the same quality levels compared to their existing partner, if not better.
Right.
And what we are doing at INDIC is, since we work a lot with automotive customers, we have modeled our quality management system with IATF, which is the automotive standard.
Yes.
So whether it's industrial or renewable, our back-end processes are exactly modeled as per the IATF requirements. So we make sure that we maintain a certain level of quality system, irrespective of which vertical we are engaged with. I think there are the other factors that I would probably think about is delivery. Again, nobody wants their supply chain disrupted just by moving to a new partner. And again, in certain cases, INDIC has been able to work together with the customer of creating a delivery model wherein we maintain buffer stocks, safety stocks, so that the turnaround time for them is quite lessened, and they really don't see an impact in terms of how much time does it take for them to get the product, when they compare their incumbent supplier to the new partner. The other thing which is getting a lot of traction that comes to my mind is how digitized and automated the operations is, right? Customers are very wary about how much of manual intervention happens on their product, whether it's on the back-end process or in terms of data that they get access to. They really don't want anybody meddling with the data or the product. And we've not been shy at all in terms of making investments to make sure that we operate very differently. We've embarked on a journey to migrate from B1 to HANA, which is state-of-the-art ERP. We're making a lot of investments on traceability systems. Again, we are putting together a system called DM, Digital Manufacturing, which is again a SAP-based solution, which offers top-of-the-class traceability from a manufacturing standpoint. We are also making some investments on solutions that automate our entire sourcing process, supply chain processes, right? And in terms of automation on the shop floor, wherever possible, wherever it makes sense, and we are able to create a fine balance between human intervention and automation, we are going ahead and do that. The other thing that I see clients looking at is differentiation, right? Gone are the days wherein somebody would move to India just because there's a cost arbitrage. They really want to understand what is the differentiation we bring in as partners. Again, whether it's on the design side or the manufacturing side. So some of the things that we are doing different is, as I said, whenever we get a product transitioning happening, we look at the design, we offer our suggestions on how the cost can be optimized, how the supply chain can be remodeled for better efficiency and delivery, and of course localization. Right? A lot of the customers that we work with, they use products that have a lot of electromechanicals in them. So our supply chain team is sourcing with vendors locally. We are doing vendor development to see how do we localize those parts so that we don't have to import them. The customer doesn't have to bear the burden of freight cost and whatnot, right? The last but not the least that comes to my mind is how stable the governance is for a company, right? I think this is more prominent when it comes to, I would say, a tier 2 organization. You talk about the Flextronics, the Celesticas of the world, they have their own governance model, they have their own structure. But when it comes to a company like INDIC, which is founder-owned, completely operating out of India, what I have seen a lot of clients look at is how stable the organization is. Cash-rich may not be the right terminology to use, but is working capital good enough that they can sustain the business over a long period of time? Last but not the least, is the management accessible, or do they have to work through a bureaucracy and before something gets escalated to the top guy, they have to work through their ladder. And INDIC is a flat organization. We are very lean. Accessibility to anybody in the senior management team is pretty seamless. So we bring that USP as well. So in a nutshell, I think these 5 or 6 factors, they make a lot of difference for the client when they look at a partner overseas. That's my take.
No, I appreciate the way you spelled that out there. That's perfect. But I did want to find, the supply chain thing becomes so important because it used to be said that even though an EMS does not have IP, their IP, if you want to say it, was their familiarity with the SMT and the manufacturing process. But over the last, probably since COVID, that's really kind of migrated to be the IP being the supply chain experts, right? You have to be, and that's part of what you were talking about there, right? Understanding how to get the parts, how to reconfigure the supply chain, and be nimble in that way.
Exactly. So I think what's becoming more important is, the customers have their bill of material, they have certain approved sources on the bill of material. But what becomes equally important for us as electronics manufacturing service providers is how do we remodel the supply chain and bring the parts either at a optimized cost or, as I said, suggest to the engineering team at the customer side on how we can redo the entire sourcing part and thereby deliver value both in terms of cost as well as the availability. And that's gaining a lot of prominence. I mean, I think when I started off with the EMS industry about 2.5 decades back, core to EMS was manufacturing. Right? Everything else was being seen as a support function. But now I see, EMSs have progressed, have matured. Supply chain becomes a very heavy piece. That becomes the go, no go decision, right? That's what drives the decision in terms of go, no go for a project transition. And then comes the manufacturing capability, the capacity and whatnot, right? So I would say tables have turned around. Supply chain is gaining a lot of prominence in the overall play.
So what, in your opinion, then, is still required or needed to kind of improve the processes and what's going on?
I think there are two things that comes to my mind. One, and I'll probably take this question slightly differently. I'll probably say, what do EMSs need to focus on a little more to be able to bring that additional value for customers? The first thing I'll say is probably focus on sustainability. I think most of the Indian EMSs have started investing on, how do they meet the requirements in terms of sustainability. Like India has a certain criteria, certain legal requirements that you have to have certain, things in place to be able to be environment friendly. A lot of companies have done the right things. They've made sure that they are compliant to those legal requirements. I cannot think of many companies that are going beyond that and saying, you know what, this is table stakes. We're going to do what it takes to meet the legal requirement of the government. But then in addition to that, sustainability and go green initiatives are part of our DNA. There are a few companies that do it. I'm happy to say INDIC is definitely one of them. Like the plant that we have operational today, we are meeting all the legal requirements. We are trying to see where we source the green energy from to run the plant. But the new plant that's coming up, there are many things that are being done to make sure that the operations, meet the environmental standards, right? So I think, it's probably something that Indian companies need to focus on a little more and see how do they enhance the investment and take that to the next level. The second thing that I really see to some extent missing is EMSs still have the mindset of services only and not solutioning, right? When I say solutioning, it doesn't necessarily mean that you do design to end of life. That's one part of the solutioning. But understanding what exactly the customer's pain point is and driving the solutioning to address those pain points, I still think that companies need to focus a little more on that, because I still see EMS companies approaching it saying, okay, I'm a service provider, this is what the customer needs, this is what I can bring to the table. But do we have conversations around why the customer is looking at us, what are his pain points, how do we address that by giving him a solution which is end-to-end? Probably that's maturity that needs to come, because in reality, only for the last 5 to 10 years, the EMS companies have taken off in India. I'm hoping that over a period of time, it will come. But that's one area that I think we need to focus on a little more.
That's interesting, because I'm also thinking about the industry sectors in which INDIC operates. And it's part of this is also staying true to who you are and what you do and not trying to be everything to everybody.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure there's business opportunities that come that could be enticing, but then you say, is this really something that I can really help serve well?
Absolutely. That's why you see we have clearly steered away from consumer electronics, because we don't believe that's our cup of tea. I mean, I cannot imagine INDIC doing 100,000 phones a day. I don't think we'll ever play in that arena, right? But we are very focused on renewables. We are very focused on automotive, right, and industrial. Now, it has its own advantages and disadvantages. These three verticals are maturing themselves in terms of how much electronics they have in their product. So a lot of times we have these conversations on, wherein the customers don't even know the basics of how a product needs to be designed to make it manufacturable. But that's where we are able to showcase a lot of value based on our experience, our capability, and drive those conversations with the customers.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for taking some time and sitting here at your facility at this time. I always enjoy your insights. You have a very considered way, based on your experience in the industry, of addressing these issues, and that really comes through.
Thanks a lot, Eric. And as I said, it's always a pleasure to be talking to you, and it's even more a pleasure this time to have you here on site in person.
We're not doing it on Zoom, that's right.
Makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.